Everybody want to start. Everybody got big dreams, big goals, big ideas. January 1st come around and the whole world shouting, "New year, new me." They buy journals, download apps, hit the gym, start a business, wake up at 5 a.m. for 3 days straight. They start like champions, but come February, they vanish, they disappear. You look around and it's like, yo, where did everybody go? You know where they went. They went back to average. They went back to comfort. Because starting is easy, but finishing, man, that's where the real warriors live. See, starting don't cost you much. Starting is free. It doesn't take a lot of grit to start. It takes excitement. It takes hype. Anybody can start. You ever see a marathon? Thousands of people at the starting line, music blasting, people dancing, taking selfies, but by mile 20, ain't no music, ain't no dancing, ain't no crowds. Just sweat, silence, and grit, because the real race ain't the start. It's the stretch when your legs are burning and your mind is screaming at you to quit. That's where the finishers are made. Finishing is what separates the motivated from the committed. I'm telling you, some of y'all think you lack talent. You don't. Some of y'all think you lack opportunity. You don't. What you lack is the spirit to finish. You want to know how I know? Because you've started 10 things this year and finished none. You had energy, you had excitement, but you didn't have follow through. You didn't have endurance. You didn't have that next level mindset that says, I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care if it hurts. I don't care if nobody's watching. I'm finishing this thing. You ever meet someone who talks about what they almost did? I almost finished college. I almost launched my clothing brand. I almost lost the weight. Let me tell you something, almost never got nobody anywhere. The graveyard is full of almosts, full of people who started but never saw it through. I don't care what you almost did. I care what you finished, because the world doesn't remember starters. It doesn't celebrate ideas. It celebrates execution, and don't get it twisted. It ain't about finishing once. It's about finishing every time, day in, day out, when the novelty wears off, when you don't feel like it, when your friends are going out but you still working. That's when the magic happens. That's when something shifts inside you. You start seeing yourself different. You start walking different. You start being different, because every time you finish, you prove to yourself, I'm not average, I'm built different. You ever wonder why people keep failing at the same things? Because they never learn the discipline of completion. They live in this cycle of excitement and disappointment. They start, stop, start, stop. Start again, stop again. It's a pattern, and it's killing their potential, because your brain starts learning that you don't mean what you say. You said you were going to wake up early, then you didn't. You said you were going to stick to your budget, then you didn't. You said you were going to finish the book, the course, the workout, but you didn't, and every time you quit, your confidence dies a little more, but the opposite is also true. Every time you finish, even something small, you build power. You build proof, you build momentum, you start rewiring your identity. You go from I'm trying to I am. You go from I want to be successful to I am successful. And not because somebody crowned you, but because you earned it through action. Through consistency, through finishing what you started over and over again. Listen to me. Finishers don't have more hours in a day. They don't have more luck. What they have is an internal fire that says, I finish everything I touch. That's the difference. When I start something, I already see the end. I already know I'm coming for the crown. I'm not playing to participate, I'm playing to dominate, and domination doesn't come from potential, it comes from performance. It comes from execution. It comes from having the guts to go through all the pain, all the setbacks, all the silence, and still cross the finish line with your head high. So the next time you want to start something, stop. Don't start it unless you plan to finish it. I'm serious. Don't waste your energy. Don't waste your dreams. Don't waste your identity. The world's got too many people starting and stopping. What we need are finishers. Soldiers, disciples of discipline, people who say if I said I was going to do it, then I'm going to do it, no matter what. That's the level you got to be on if you ever want to stop dreaming about success and start living in it. Because I promise you, finishing is the secret. It's the code. It's the door to every level you ever dreamed of. And once you learn to finish, everything changes. You don't get the check for showing up to the interview. You don't get the degree for attending the first day of class. You don't get the respect, the influence, the recognition just for having an idea. The world is not built to reward people who start something. It's built to reward people who see it through. It's built to pay the ones who grind when the spotlight's off, the ones who don't just talk about goals but actually finish what they start. Because starting is common, but finishing, that's rare, and what's rare, that's what becomes valuable. Everybody wants the lifestyle. Everybody wants to win. But they forget the path to winning is paved with consistency, not creativity. The world is full of creative people with big plans and beautiful visions who never saw it all the way through. You think a dream alone will get you the reward. You think good intentions will pay your rent. You think just showing up halfway will give you the crown. No. This world doesn't hand out trophies for starting. You don't get applause for being halfway there. You get the reward when you finish. You get the prize when you cross the finish line. That's when the doors open. That's when the impact begins. Some of you are stuck in this cycle where you keep starting over. You start a business, then life hits. You start a workout plan, then it rains. You start reading books, then the phone rings. Every time something doesn't go your way, you restart. You hit the reset button. You say, next month I'll try again. But the world doesn't pay for intentions. It doesn't recognize people who live on pause. It doesn't value people who keep quitting right before the breakthrough. It rewards people who say, I don't care what's in my way. I'm finishing this. There's no paycheck in almost. There's no legacy in halfway. You don't get remembered for the project you abandoned. You get remembered for the one you finished when it was hard. You get remembered for the one that pushed you to the limit, broke your spirit, and made you question everything, and you still crossed the line. That's what separates the weak from the warriors. That's what separates talkers from finishers. Because everybody's got the words, not everybody's got the grind. You think people get respect for potential. No, people get respect for results. And results don't come from the hype you feel at the beginning. Results come from what you do when the hype is gone, the crowd is silent, and all you got left is discipline. That's where the real winners are born. They live in the valley. They live in the silence. They live in the space where everyone else gave up and went home. They stay when it's no longer fun. They execute when it's painful. They finish when others fold, and because they finish, they win. You want success. Finish, you want peace. Finish, you want to change your life. Finish, there are too many of us looking for shortcuts. Too many of us chasing motivation. Too many of us looking for another podcast, another book, another guru to hype us up. What you really need is a mirror. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, when's the last time I finished something I started? And not just finished it, but gave it everything, saw it through, pushed past the wall. Refuse to make excuses. That's the question that changes your life. Because when you start finishing, people start paying attention. They start respecting your name. They start seeing you as someone who doesn't play with goals, but delivers on them. See, finishing builds something inside of you that starting never will. It builds identity. It builds confidence. It builds legacy. Every finish line you cross teaches you who you are. Every goal you grind out rewires your brain to believe you are capable. It reminds you that the pain was worth it, the sweat, the sacrifice, the late nights. It all mattered because you crossed the line. You didn't fold. You didn't walk away. You finished. And when you finish, you gain power. People trust finishers. People invest in finishers. People promote finishers. You don't get invited to the table because you had a good idea. You get invited because you executed the idea. Because you didn't just dream it, you delivered it. That's the currency of greatness. That's the language of champions. Not talk, not dreams, but results. You can either live your life being known as someone who's always trying, or someone who gets it done. Someone who starts and stalls, or someone who pushes and finishes. The world is watching. Your future is watching. And whether or not you win won't be decided at the beginning, it'll be decided at the end. Because the world doesn't care what you meant to do, it cares what you finished. Motivation is a beautiful thing, but it's temporary. It's that fire that burns hot in the beginning, but it fades fast. You feel it when the music's playing, when the sun's rising, when you just watched a powerful video and your heart's pounding. In that moment, you believe you can do anything, and that's cool, that's powerful. But that fire won't last. Life will test you, the emotion will fade, the adrenaline will wear off, and when it does, you better have something deeper than motivation, because that's when the real work starts. That's when discipline shows up. Discipline is what steps in when the excitement is gone. Discipline is the voice that tells you to get up when your body says stay in bed. It's the thing that pulls you to the gym when you feel tired. It's the reason you keep studying when you'd rather watch Netflix. Discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you actually get. Motivation might get you started, but discipline gets you across the finish line. You think the greats rely on feeling. You think champions always feel like practicing, like training, like grinding. No, they don't feel like it every day, but they show up anyway, because they've trained their mind to honor the mission over the mood. That's the difference between most people and the elite. Most people wait to feel good to act, but the elite act whether they feel good or not. They don't need hype. They don't need the perfect vibe. They don't need everything aligned. They move because they've made a decision, and discipline is the system that keeps that decision alive. You can't count on motivation. It's like the weather, it changes. Some days it's sunny, some days it storms. If you only grind on the sunny days, you'll never make it. Life will knock you down, throw you off balance, distract you, drain you, and when all that happens, your goals don't pause. Your future don't wait. The clock doesn't stop ticking. So if you ain't got discipline, you're already falling behind. Discipline is doing it without applause. It's waking up early when nobody's watching. It's sticking to the diet when no one's looking. It's saying no to comfort so you can say yes to purpose. Discipline doesn't make you popular, but it makes you powerful. Discipline doesn't always feel good, but it produces greatness. When everybody else is quitting, it's discipline that keeps you in the fight. When people fall off, disappear, make excuses, it's discipline that separates the real ones from the rest. You ever wonder why people keep starting over every week? Because they're addicted to motivation, not committed through discipline. They need to feel something to act. They need to be pumped up to move, but discipline don't need a feeling. It's not emotional, it's foundational. It's a standard. You don't negotiate with it. You don't debate with it. You just obey it. It becomes part of who you are. When you've got discipline, your goals are no longer optional. They're non-negotiable. That's when things change. That's when success starts chasing you instead of you chasing it. You don't have to wait for a Monday. You don't have to wait for January. You don't need a new year, a new moon, or a new playlist. You're locked in because you understand this ain't about hype. This is about habits. People ask how to stay consistent. The answer is simple. Stop depending on hype. Build systems. Set routines. Lock in your priorities. Wake up at the time you said you would. Do what you said you were gonna do, even when nobody's holding you accountable. You hold yourself accountable because you're not chasing a moment. You're building a legacy. It's easy to be excited when everything's going right, but who are you when everything's going wrong? Who are you when your friends quit, when your account is low, when you're frustrated, overwhelmed, and invisible? That's when discipline becomes your best friend, because discipline don't care if you're tired. Discipline don't care if you're broke. Discipline don't care if nobody believes in you. It just keeps pushing you forward. It keeps you in alignment with your purpose, and here's the truth. Most people will never reach their full potential, not because they didn't have talent, not because they weren't gifted, but because they couldn't stay consistent long enough. They were motivated in waves, but never disciplined through storms. They let how they felt determine what they did. But those who win, those who rise, those who dominate, they make discipline their lifestyle. They don't stop when it gets hard. They don't flinch when it gets lonely. They keep moving, they keep grinding, they keep building, not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because they know on the other side of discipline is freedom, is greatness, is everything they were born to become, the thing you keep putting off, the thing you keep quitting, the thing you keep delaying. That's the one thing standing between you and your breakthrough. You keep thinking you need something new, something extra, something external to finally get where you're trying to go. But the truth is, you don't need more talent. You don't need more time. You need to finish what you already started. Because your next level is hidden behind that unfinished task. That goal you've been running from is the very thing that will unlock your future, but you'll never know that if you keep walking away every time it gets uncomfortable. Some of you got notebooks full of ideas, phones full of voice notes, vision boards full of dreams, and that's great, but none of it matters if you never finish. You got the concepts, the strategy, the plan, but you're missing the discipline to complete. You keep waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect alignment of the stars. But perfection isn't the requirement, completion is, and what you're calling waiting is just procrastination dressed in excuses. You keep saying, I'll do it later, but later becomes never. You tell yourself you'll pick it back up when you feel ready, but what if ready never comes? What if one day becomes no day? You've been circling the same mountain for years. You start a business, but don't follow through. You get excited about your health, but quit after the first week. You commit to reading more, writing more, praying more, growing more, but you never finish. And that's why your life feels like it's on pause, because you're leaving doors half open and wondering why nothing's moving forward. Let me be real with you. What's holding you back is not the enemy, it's the unfinished. Unfinished ideas, unfinished habits, unfinished healing. That project you gave up on, that was supposed to be your breakthrough. That course you didn't complete, that was the key to your next opportunity. That chapter you didn't write, that job application you didn't submit, that discipline you didn't stick with, that was the bridge to your freedom, but you tore it down halfway through because it got hard. And now you're standing in the same place, frustrated, tired, confused, thinking life is unfair. It's not unfair, it's just waiting on you to finish. See, life pays you when you close loops, when you follow through. When you stop chasing hype and start finishing assignments, the blessing is behind the burden. The elevation is buried under the effort you keep avoiding. You want the reward without the responsibility. You want the results without the repetition, but it doesn't work like that. Life don't hand out trophies for intentions. You get rewarded when you complete the mission. It's not enough to start with excitement. Anybody can do that. Starting is for dreamers, finishing is for winners, and the difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't motivation. It's execution. You don't need more inspiration. You need closure. You need to go back to that thing you left behind and finish it. You need to prove to yourself that you're not just a starter. You're a finisher, because when you finish, something changes inside you. Confidence kicks in, momentum builds, the voice of self. Doubt gets quieter every time you complete something, and before you know it, you're not just hoping, you're walking in power. You keep asking God, the universe, life for a sign. But maybe the sign is that thing you haven't finished yet, that burden in your gut, that nagging reminder, that thing that won't leave you alone. You think it's a coincidence. No, it's unfinished business. And it's waiting for you to come back, not with excuses this time, not with half effort, not with apologies, but with fire, with commitment, with the mindset that says, I'm finishing this if it costs me everything. You want clarity. Finish. You want confidence. Finish. You want peace. Finish. You think your mind is anxious because you're overwhelmed, But it's not. You're anxious because you're incomplete. Your spirit knows you've got unresolved things, unfulfilled promises, unmet potential, and the only way to silence that chaos is to complete the assignment. Go back and finish the book, finish the application, finish the workout plan, finish the commitment you made to yourself in January that you already abandoned by March. Stop carrying around the weight of half-finished dreams and start freeing yourself through follow-through, because that's where your transformation lies. It's not in the start, it's in the finish. That's where the pain becomes power. That's where the lessons turn into legacy. That's where the suffering finally produces something worth showing the world. Don't let your story be another chapter of almost. Don't let your life be a collection of unfinished sentences. Finish the sentence, finish the story, finish the mission, because what's waiting for you on the other side is more than you ever imagined. But you'll never experience it if you don't make the decision to finish what you started. Every time you finish something, you become someone. You build your identity not with your intentions, but with your actions. It's not about what you said you were gonna do, it's about what you actually did. Because finishing is more than an act, it's a statement. A declaration of who you are. It tells the world, I'm not just a talker, I'm a finisher. I follow through, I complete the mission, I close the chapter. And the more you finish, the more powerful your identity becomes. Not in the eyes of others, but in your own soul. The reason you don't trust yourself is because you've become familiar with the habit of quitting. You've made a routine out of giving up. You tell yourself you're gonna do something and then back out halfway. And every time you do that, you chip away at your confidence. You weaken your inner voice. You teach yourself not to believe in your own words. And if you can't believe you, why would anybody else? You've got to start finishing, not just for the results, but to rebuild the relationship you have with yourself. Finishing is what redefines who you are. You go from I hope I can to I know I will. From maybe one day to I did that. Because identity isn't something you find, it's something you forge. You shape it with every hard decision, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you do the thing you said you would do, long after the feeling you had when you made the commitment is gone. That's what builds self-respect. That's what creates real confidence. It doesn't come from compliments. It comes from completions. And I'm not talking about finishing when it's easy. I'm talking about finishing when it's tough. When nobody's cheering, when the results are slow, when everything in your body says stop, but your purpose says go. That's where the identity is built. In the trenches, that's where the old version of you dies and the new version is born. Not at the start, not in the middle, but at the end when it hurts, when you're stretched, when you're tested. That's when you transform. Every finish becomes a brick in the foundation of who you are. And the more bricks you lay, the stronger you become. That's why some people walk different. That's why they talk different. Not because they're cocky, but because they've got evidence. They've seen themselves do it. They've seen themselves finish when it wasn't convenient, when it wasn't popular, when it wasn't comfortable, and that history gives them confidence in the present. You don't build identity by winning once. You build it by finishing over and over again. You show up daily, you complete the task, you honor your word, and over time that consistency becomes your character. You start becoming the person you used to admire, the one you used to watch, the one you used to wish you were. Now you're the example. Now you're the one others look to, not because you started, but because you stayed, because you kept showing up, because you didn't fold when it got real. And let me tell you something, some of you have never met the strongest version of yourself because you've never pushed far enough to find them. You stopped before the transformation. You quit before the becoming. But if you could just finish, just once, you'd unlock a part of you that would make the old you unrecognizable. That's the power of finishing. It introduces you to your next level. It redefines what you think is possible. Not because someone told you, but because you proved it to yourself. And from that moment on, your identity starts to change. You no longer question whether you can. You know you can. You no longer hope for discipline. You are disciplined. You no longer fantasize about finishing. You expect to finish because now it's who you are. It's in your DNA. You finish books, you finish workouts, you finish goals, and now every new challenge becomes less intimidating because your track record speaks louder than your doubts. That's why it's not about the scale, it's not about the followers, it's not about the applause, it's about becoming someone you can count on, someone who shows up, someone who honors their commitment, even when nobody's watching. That kind of identity doesn't just create success, it creates freedom, because now you're not a slave to your feelings, you're not at the mercy of the mood, you're guided by purpose, anchored in discipline. Driven by the decision to be someone who always finishes what they start. The finish line ain't just a destination, it's a mirror. Every time you cross it, it reflects who you really are. And if you keep crossing those lines again and again, you'll start to see something in that mirror you've never seen before. A finisher, a warrior, a closer, someone who doesn't just dream, but delivers. You keep looking at people who are winning and thinking they're more gifted than you. You keep telling yourself, if I had what they had, I'd be where they are. But let me tell you something real. It's not about talent. It's not about being the smartest. It's not about being the fastest. The truth is, winners are not special because of what they're born with. They are special because of what they finish. They don't win because they're chosen. They win because they stay. They stay in the fight. They stay in the grind. They stay committed when others walk away. There are people out there who had less than you, knew less than you, had fewer resources than you, and they still beat you, not because they were better, but because they finished. That's it. That's the whole story. They didn't quit. They didn't fold. They didn't get distracted. They didn't disappear when it got tough. They made a decision that no matter what happened, they were gonna complete the mission. And that decision alone elevated them above people with more talent, more knowledge, more support, more everything. Talent might get you noticed, but finishing is what gets you respect. It's what gets you results. It's what gets you rewarded. The world is full of talented people who are broke, smart people who are stuck, gifted people who are still dreaming because they never finish. They always start fast and quit halfway. Always talking, planning, preparing, but never executing, always waiting for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect motivation. But winners don't wait, they work. They finish what they start, and that's why they rise. You're sitting on potential, but potential don't pay bills, potential don't feed your kids, potential don't change lives, execution does, completion does. You think the people out there winning are outworking you because they love pain. No, they've just learned to value the finish line more than their feelings. They've learned to value progress over perfection. And while you're sitting there debating, doubting, deciding, winners are doing. And that's why they're not just dreamers, they're finishers. You ever wonder why you don't feel confident? Why you keep second, guessing yourself? It's not because you're incapable, it's because you don't finish. Every time you walk away from a commitment, you're telling yourself a story, and the story is, I'm not built for this. Every time you say, I'll start again Monday, every time you abandon the plan, every time you fall short and don't get back up, you reinforce that identity. You start to believe you're inconsistent. You start to see yourself as unreliable, not because it's true, but because you've rehearsed that pattern over and over again. But the moment you start finishing, everything changes. Your confidence comes back, your voice gets stronger, your presence grows, because now you've got proof, you've got evidence. You didn't just talk about it, you lived it, you followed through, you stayed when it was hard. You crossed the line, and that changes how you see yourself. That changes how the world sees you. That changes everything. The gap between you and the people you admire isn't ability, it's accountability. It's follow through. It's who's willing to do the boring stuff, the unsexy stuff, the lonely grind, the silent work. Everybody's fired up on day one, but only the finishers are still standing when the lights go off, when the motivation fades, when the grind gets real. That's when the gap gets wider. That's when separation happens, not during the sprint, but during the stretch, not in the noise, but in the quiet. You want to be great, start finishing, start completing the small things. Wake up when you said you would. Stick to the schedule you made. Push through the workout you wanted to quit. Send the email you've been avoiding. Finish the chapter. Finish the plan. Finish the commitment you made when you were inspired. Because that's where your power is, not in what you're planning to do, but in what you're actually doing. And once you taste the win that comes from finishing, you'll get addicted to it. You'll start craving closure. You'll stop chasing shortcuts and start chasing standards. You'll stop trying to feel motivated and start feeling convicted. Because winners don't need hype. They've got habits, and those habits are built brick by brick, moment by moment, finish by finish. You've got everything you need inside of you right now. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. What you don't need is more talent. What you don't need is another pep talk. What you don't need is permission. What you need is to decide that you're done quitting, that you're done stalling, that you're done being average, and the fastest way to become who you were born to be is simple. Finish what you start.